To start out and everything, we're gonna talk about phone addicts, cause my generation's everything is addicted to phones. Even like the older generation, they were taught to use phones and everything like that, and like millennials and everything like that, they'll freak out and they'll be like, I can have like full panic and everything, and they'll just freak out if they don't have their phone on this. But they don't have to be on their phone like 24/7 like us. Apparently, Gen Z or more dependent on their phone and everything like that. And like for millennials, they're like, oh, just in case, it's just in a backup. It's just in case, um, it's more practical. It's for GPS and to call somebody if there's an emergency. It's more for functional and just contacting people, and then it's more like abused for Gen Z and everything. You're like, no, it's my life. It's where all my friends are. It's the only way I can talk to people. Only way I can talk to my friends. It's the only way it's my social media. So I talk to everyone online. It's my life. It's how I find entertainment. It's just my everything. Yeah. And yeah, like Gen Z and everything like that, they're talking about, a comment was like, they're like, what, how do we like inspire and make these Gen Z like make sure that they actually want to work and that they do work and everything, because they were just like handed everything right away. They were just like given everything. And I was like, it's kind of like, and it kind of seems like they can't do anything on our own and everything, and that we're solely dependent on like our phones and everything like that. We can't live without it. Um, and I think of it, and how I thought of it was, it's the same as when you put an old person in the retirement home. They're fully taken care of. They have all their needs. They have all their wants fulfilled in their retirement home. They have all their wants and needs fulfilled and taken care of. They don't gotta. They don't gotta work for it. They don't gotta do anything except to maintain that lifestyle. Gen Z will have to work and get jobs and work hard and do things to make sure that they can maintain that lifestyle. The lifestyle, and everything that they take for granted. A lot of them probably will have to learn the hard lesson of it being taken away from them, for them to being like, oh yeah, I gotta work and I gotta do things, then I have to act properly, I gotta behave, because it'll go away otherwise, and I won't be able to have it. And it's something I take for granted, and everything like that. And then for me, like, there was this funny clip. I mostly just think about these different clips and everything like that. Inspired me to get these videos, because I've heard like occasionally like people just complaining about it, just complaining about my generation just normally, and then like I mostly just remember that, and it's just added to it. Things that I like, things I agree with, disagree with. I just reminded in clips and everything like that. But there was this cute like shirt or whatever, and they had like the different generations and everything like that. And they had this funny clip or whatever. They were talking about how Gen Z is like aging more quickly and everything like that. How they're younger than the millennials, but they're aging more quickly than the millennials. Yeah. And I was like, that might just be more like, I was like, part of that, so I also thought about the retirement thing. I was like, part of it is because I was like, they're given everything and they just want to keep it and they want to maintain that and they don't want to do anything. So they do act the same as like an older person who would be in a retirement home. Yeah. And then part of it might be being like, a lot of it, some of it, mostly depending on the person, they'd be like, oh, they know, and maybe they had to worry about, and they got more issues, and they like, mostly because they actually know what their problems are now. There's awareness, and you can learn what your problems are, and then you gotta confront and deal with them, and you can't just suppress them or hide them anymore. You're like, oh, I need to actually deal with this, I need to actually work on this. And for like the millennials, they more just try to bring it up, and obviously the generations before that, they're like, hey, this is the problem and everything. Oh, and then there was this one video I remember I'd seen like a little bit before, but then I think it seemed like it was originally by like Danny Phantom and everything like that. They did this, he used a different sound, I don't know. But anyway, he was talking about, because they're like, oh, you're scared of me, or whatever. And they're like, oh, maybe you're the generation that, like, changes and, like, doesn't pass down the abuse. And they was like, no, that was supposed to be you. And then I thought about that more, and I was like, no, actually, It was supposed to be their parents, and no, it wasn't supposed to be that person's parents. It was supposed to be their ancestors. It was supposed to be everyone's ancestors. It was supposed to be the first person who ever mistreated anyone, who ever abused anyone. They were supposed to stop it with them. They were supposed to stop it. But they didn't, and they kept passing it down, and everyone just passed it down, and no one ever changed anything. And everyone just denied about it, and they said it was all normal and everything like that. And then even for, like, millennials, they're like, hey, that was just not normal. That was just normal. It's just something that always happened. So, and I was also, like, I was raised by millennials. I was like, who really took care of me? I was like, my parents, not really, no. A little bit, not really. I was like, who had to watch me? Who had to change my diapers? All my older siblings that were all millennials. Who tried to introduce me a little bit to music? Who tried to break free of my strict parents? Whose phone did I get that was passed down? All millennials. Yeah, we grew up with a home phone. We didn't have any channels. We didn't have any channel. We didn't have any cable. We didn't have antenna. That was taken down. We only had VHR cassette tapes. We only had CDs. Most of them my sisters bought, and then little cassette tapes. Oh, I was thinking of the VHR tapes. They're bigger. They're a lot fatter. Well, they're the same as the little tapes. And then they might have like a CD player or whatever. And then we just had, it looked like they were brand new and everything like that. It was just a CD player that was also worked as a radio. We always had radios. And then we had those the giant thing right there that you can open up where there's the needle and everything where you put the record on. Yeah, we listened to a few of those a few times. So yeah, I did live basically under a rock. I lived in like the older times, whatever. I had older parents. Their excuse for everything was that we were poor, but I was like, oh, poor people. I was like, my friends were also poor, and she was living on food stamps and everything like that, but they had sugar, and they had like cable, and they had TV, and they had more current movies. They had seen like Disney Channel and stuff like that. So it was just a mess. And they're like, but you don't want to be corrupted by like the culture and stuff like that. You don't want to see anything on TV because of nudity. Yeah, no, it wasn't happening. So yeah. And I was like, I don't really get the crunchy moms or anything like that. So I was like, yeah, I was like, my parents were trying to become Amish, but we had electricity, which is actually the same as some Amish people. Because some Amish communities and stuff like that, they'll be like, oh no, we have cars, we have electricity, and we have indoor plumbing. And then some of them are more outgoing, or like they're not really in the community, but they were like Amish. They're like completely the same as everybody else, and the same standard, and everything like that. Oh, and we did have an outhouse outside, and we were supposed to also use the bathroom outside, but I refused. I said, I am not an animal. And also, they were like, oh, it's okay to eat dog food. No, I didn't. No. I'm sorry, I don't want to be an actual animal. I thought we evolved. Apparently not. Clearly, you don't want to evolve, and you don't want to act like a human. And you won't treat me as nice, and you treat the animals way nicer than me. So, and you buy them better food and everything. Except it's better food for the animals because it's something they can eat and they like, but it's not something humans could eat and they should consume. But yeah, that's another complaint, but yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, I feel like I'm older and everything because they were like, oh, because apparently there's this thing. Wait, no, it's not that. That's R. There's like this, no? There's like this or something? I don't know. They do it with like a few fingers where they make a heart instead of doing the whole with two hands, which I can't do right now. We use two hands to make a heart, and to make a picture, you use like an old camera, and you go like this, and use the phone, you pick it up, and you hang it up. And I had landline, and then we even had like an old one you stick on the wall, and you spin and dial. We didn't use that, and that was old, it wasn't hooked up to anything. We had the whole big one on old landline home phone, and that was our only phone, and almost no one picked it up anyway, so you couldn't call anyone. And then later on, we had the little flip phone. And then later on, it got a little special with, like, the phone that had the keys, all the letters, and the screen. Instead of just the letters and the numbers being also the letters. So you couldn't really text anyone. I think I'd only seen that one. I maybe was able to use it once. But yeah, when everyone was using smartphones and got smartphones, I got maybe a flip phone. And I only got it because I was finally in sports. And even though I called them all the time and I talked to them on the phone, they always forgot me at school and they never picked me up. So that's great. Yeah. But I don't know that much about, like, my generation. Yeah. I don't really know, but that was just my theory about them being, like, seem like they age faster. It's like, for me personally, it's because I have all these problems. And, like, I also can totally relate, and I would also have to, like, date someone who's older, because I was like, I relate to the older. I was like, yeah, and I was like, oh, what was, like, tight and popular? I was like, skinny jeans. They were super uncomfortable, but you had to wear them, and they was tight. And they were all like, oh, Gen Z versus, like, millennials. Like, they were, like, for fitted clothes and fashion and different things like that. And I was like, I relate, and I agree with everything the millennial did. Yeah. So it's just in shorts and everything like that. Look at my shirt. Okay. Yeah. But, yeah, that's what I was thinking. But, yeah. Especially since they were like, oh, and, like, Gen Z are like, oh, that's unhealthy, that's abuse, you need to, like, go therapy and get help and stuff like that. And, like, yeah, now millennials are like, oh, yeah, we need to go to therapy, and we have all these issues. And they're like, oh, that's a problem that was passed down. They're like, oh, this is a health problem. This is a mental health problem. Oh, we should go to doctors now and stop ignoring our problems like our parents taught us to, and just pushing it down and not going to doctor. And you're only allowed to go to the doctor if your bones are broken anyway. And you're taught that, and you're supposed to force through and push through everything. And you're told that you're lazy, if you can't do anything, and, like, panic attacks and stuff like that, not being in the mood. You're still being like, oh, you can just walk it off. You can just walk it off for everything. Just always forcing yourself to do it, being like, oh, mental illness or whatever. Or like, oh, you have a family problem, oh, there's abuse or whatever. You're like, no, it's a dirty secret. You're not allowed to tell anyone. No one's allowed to know about your problems. It's not a real problem. It's not real abuse. It's none of this. It's not a real problem. You're making it up. You're a liar. No one should ever believe you. Everything that they knew was wrong, and that they were taught, and they also were like, yeah, this hurt and stuff, but I'm going to still do it anyway to you. You're like, oh, but they were taught that, and it was abuse, but they didn't know that. No, they figured it out. They knew. Their parents knew. They knew what they were doing. It just normalized. Everyone was like, oh, this is okay. You can do this. There's acceptable behavior. They're like, oh, actually do this. They were all promoted, and they were all teaching. They're like, yeah, you should do this. It was seen in a positive light. It was taught, and they were complimented, and you're like, dad, who's never been proud of you, never said a good word, never complimented you ever in your life, but you did this bad thing, and you copied what he did to you, to someone else, and now finally you got praise and support from him. I'm going to complain about that in another video in a minute, because I was like, that's what's happened with, like, transphobia and gayphobia and stuff like that. I'm going to have to look something else first, because there was the whole case that I saw on Facebook, about the whole, someone who identified non-binary being beaten to death in the bathroom, and it happened this year, so I'm gonna have to look it up. Okay, whatever, I think that should be everything for this topic, yeah. I just, like, relate more to them, and they're like, yeah, we are abused. It was just something normal, and something common that always just happened. It was just another day in your life. And they were always like, they're not flipping out, and they're not freaking out, it's not a big deal. And I was like, I won't have anything to relate to or talk to, like, someone my own age, unless you're, like, also mentally ill and also depressed. Then we're just going to talk about how we both want to die. And then you're like, oh, it's not really positive. And there's nothing we're going to really talk about, really, with there. So I was like, just life experience, and, like, you can't relate, because then they had, like, supportive parents, and their parents were, like, millennials age and stuff like that. And they broke the cycle, and they didn't have that, and they don't know that normal was abuse and stuff like that. So, yeah, no.